But yeah, Dave, we have come on obviously to talk about all things Reading and what's going on at the moment with the club. Do you want to just give a little bit of a brief summary of what has happened over the years? I know there is a lot of people, especially the lower league. I know we talk about it, as Claire mentioned off air, on quite a regular basis, but there is quite a lot of football fans out there who do not know really the situation about Reading, which I think is appalling because it should be put everywhere. This should be like news. It should be everywhere. So do you just want to talk to people about what's actually going on at the moment?
Absolutely. You said a brief summary. That's just not possible.
No, that's fine.
This has been going on now. I mean, it's been through successive owners since Sir John Medeski sold the club in early 2012. Since then, we've had three sets of owners, and the current owner, who bought the club in, when was it? May 2017. He bought us. Well, ironically, or funnily enough, it was announced at about 60 minutes into our playoff semi-final against Fulham, the second leg, which we won. So effectively, he's taken us over in a playoff final, and it's all been downhill ever since. But not just on the pitch; it's been absolutely horrific off the pitch as well. The guy, his name is Dai Yongge, and his sister Dai Yongge. They bought the club from a Thai consortium, and essentially they're both extremely wealthy people, we're led to believe, and there's certainly money that's been pumped into the club, but it just seems to be that we've got, or we currently have, the world's most incompetent billionaire in charge of our football club. Christ knows how on earth he ended up with so much money, because the decisions that he's taken since he's been in charge of Reading Football Club have, and it is predominantly Dai Yongge who fronts the decision making. It's quite horrific, to be honest with you. This isn't a case of a club not having enough. Well, the club itself doesn't have enough money to be able to operate on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. It's essentially the guy has put far too much money into the club, and has now saddled us with a legacy of expenses and overspending that has crippled us, as we're now seeing we're constantly on transfer. Well, I say at the moment we're not actually on the transfer embargo list because we actually submitted our accounts earlier today, actually. So we're off the transfer embargo list for the first time in God knows how long. Essentially, it's been massive overspending over a elongated period of time, in all the wrong areas. Horrible advice that he's been received. He's been in the pocket of the well-known, well, you could call him a super agent, I suppose, the well-known super agent Kia Jarabchian, who was essentially bestowing players on the club that Dai Yongge wanted to sign, and they weren't the right character, they weren't the right fit. The period around summer 2019 was the summer that really did it, when we looked to, well, we signed Raphael from Napoli, we signed George Puskas from Inter, we signed Lucas João from Sheffield Wednesday, Ovia Jaria arrived permanently from Liverpool, and prior to that we'd signed Shawnee Aluko from Fulham for a club record fee, and they all underperformed as well. And it's just been a merry-go-round of managers as well. Reading used to be a fairly stable club when it came to managers. We used to give managers time and patience. We're a patient lot, really, as a bunch of fans. But it's just been a merry-go-round of managers. We've had, so from Jaap Stam, we went to Paul Clement, who lasted about 10 months. We went to Jose Gomez, who lasted about a year. We went to Mark Bowen, who ended up lasting about 7 or 8 months. We went to Velko Paunovic, who lasted 2.5 years. So it's just nobody's getting any time, and it's just ended up with the club losing its championship status in over a period of time where we hadn't been at the level we're at now since 2002. So for a club of our size, from where we were back then, and the fact that we'd grown the club to Premier League football. We've had 3 years in the Premier League, and then it's just been gradual regression over a steady period of time, which has just been kind of, I want to use the word, reinforced, I suppose, by shit ownership, shit decision making, and successive seasons of underperformance on the pitch.
Just going really quickly to the chat, Aled has put, I don't think the media deals with situations, for example, Reading, really well. You look how they approach the Berwick and Bolton situations. He's also put, more needs to be done to highlight these issues, and also more to prevent these owners from owning clubs. Graham has also put, he's a Charlton fan, Graham. He's put, this sounds eerily similar to us under Roland, and I can't even pronounce his name. Revolving door of managers and players not good enough for Championship/League One. Sean has put, seem like a lucky dip of managers for Dai, really. And we've got our very own Sam as well. He's put, evening all, Reading's situation is looking shocking. An incredible club being driven into the ground. Awful. Obviously, you did mention that, Dave, and that summary of it. I know there's probably more you can say as well. There is new information that has come to light, obviously, about the court case, what was recently happened. What did happen then?
So it's actually quite complex, fairly complex, and I'm not entirely sure I've got my head around it. But basically, so back in, it's coming up for about a year ago, sort of 9 months ago, Rob Couhig, who used to own Wycombe Wanderers, was involved in or heading up a consortium of like-minded people to buy the club, and throughout the summer, it was gearing towards everything had been agreed, and essentially, we're all led to believe that it was just a case of everybody signing on the dotted line. What Rob Couhig suggests has happened is that firstly, Dai Yongge didn't actually sign on the dotted line to sell the club. Let's make that absolutely clear. Everybody else was ready. But what Rob has since tried to sue. No, I don't think it's Reading Football Club that he's sued. I think he's sued the holding company. But either way, basically, he took the club to the High Court because there was documentation that he'd been copied into by our absolute wet wipe of a chief executive officer, Dai Yongge, who had sent around during a period of exclusivity a document that seemed to be a marketing document inviting people to buy the club, essentially looking for buyers during a period of exclusivity. So Couhig's seen that. He's taken the club to the court, and through the court case. The court case was on Friday. During all of this, of course, everything that was going on, sort of mainly back in sort of July, August time, essentially, Couhig was, the fundamental decision maker at the football club. Again, we're led to believe this is all allegedly. So there were decisions being made on player signings, on the women's team, and very close. We're led to believe the academy as well. There were decisions being made on the academy and the future of that were being made by Couhig. So Kuhig essentially had control of the football club. He's also got what are known as, well, and there's a term that I'd never heard of until sort of October, September, the liens, which are essentially controlling. It's a controlling asset, I suppose, for an organisation that you want to buy. So he's got hold of these, and he's not given them back. And so the football club have also essentially they've gone to court seeking these liens back from Kuhig, because it was believed that the football club couldn't be sold without them. And technically, I suppose that's true. But essentially, the long and short of it is that there seems to be, so Rob Kuhig was asked, because of the issue with the trying to sell, trying to bring more buyers into the football club, and Kuhig not being able to buy the club. Kuhig is then sued for what he thinks is £12 million, and that is for a future sort of profit that he was going to make on any kind of activity within the club and future sale. And essentially, what the judge in the court case has said is that why can't that £12 million be put in an escrow account, and the club be sold? So once that £12 million has been put in an escrow account, the argument over how much and whether any settlement can be reached, and then Kuhig, once that's in the escrow account, it's then ring fenced, and then Kuhig needs to release the liens, and then the club can be sold.
Yeah,
we don't know where the liens are at the moment. We know that, so there was a club update today, and fair play to Reading Football Club. They have honoured a promise that they made back in December to provide monthly updates. And the update was that they had forwarded a proposal to Kuhig via the lawyers. And so that looks to be, they're looking to progress that and hopefully get and we're also in another period of exclusivity with an unnamed buyer who is alleged to be a former club owner over in Denmark and Italy, called Robert Platek. He's an American guy who has a Polish surname. We do well with owners with Polish surnames. So hopefully, once these liens are released, they can be used in the sale that hopefully will eventually go through pretty damn quick. But until they're released and we know exactly what's going on, at the moment we're stuck in a bit of limbo, we think. But ultimately, the judge has said there's no barrier to a sale, provided money gets placed into an escrow account and the liens are released as a result, because that money will be used as part of a settlement. If Kuhig ends up as a winner of his case. So there was almost an outbreak of common sense in that court case. So we'll see what happens. At the moment, it's all up in the air a little bit, and people are kind of worrying about Kuhig and his activity, but also the fact that within the court case, Dai Yongge was revealed to have now been disqualified as an owner. And that deadline for him to divest himself of the shares of the club is the 4th of April. So essentially what that means is, if I think I'm right in saying that he's the first active director or owner of a football club that has been disqualified from being an owner of a football club. What it means is, it's an EFL stipulation, and the EFL require that person, i.e. Dai Yongge, to divest himself of all of his shares and his controlling interest in the football club within 28 days. So they can extend that, provided that there is evidence that there is a sort of an ongoing sale process and progress is being made. But yes, the club is on. Its share in the EFL is currently in jeopardy, and we don't really know how close we are to where to whether or not we're actually going to complete the season. Because what happens if we end up being disqualified from the EFL on the 4th of April, or complete the season and then go into the summer? What happens between now? It is literally a Bury case and a Bolton case again. It is literally the same thing. It's open to it's open to the EFL. It's open to Dai Yongge. It's open to the football club and the powers that be that are buying the club to pull their fingers out and get this sale over the line sooner rather than later, and get Dai Yongge and his sister out of the club.
Do you know what? Just listening to all that, I don't know if anyone can tell, but my eyes are actually filling up. I didn't realise how it really, really gets me so angry how somebody can do this, and to a football club, all them fans, like the heart of the community, it just really angers me. And considering, am I right in saying Dai Yongge was actually linked previously to Hull and he failed the fit and proper test?
Yeah, so yes, he was. I don't like giving the guy any sort of kind of credit, but no. To be fair, he was part of a consortium, and it was the consortium that failed. So it wasn't necessarily him specifically, but he was part of that consortium that failed. Likewise, his sister. So yes, they failed the Premier League tests. They passed the EFL tests. Now, unfortunately, back then, the EFL tests were essentially a tick box exercise. Have you ever been disqualified from owning a business in the past? Yes or no, tick box. And nobody really did any checks. The Premier League were able to do, and still are able to do, more stringent checks simply because they've got the resources to do so. The EFL doesn't. And that's where part of the issue was back then. The checks are now a lot more stringent. And the EFL, particularly since Birch has been on the committee up there, is a lot more stringent. It's a lot more. They've been a lot more disciplinarian with their approach towards football clubs, which is where we've come a cropper a little bit, whereas other clubs perhaps got away fairly lightly in comparison to us. But that's not to say that I'm bitter or twisted or anything about that. The rules are there, and even back then, it's like you're looking at the football clubs that are being let off fairly lightly in comparison, and you're thinking, at the time, I was thinking that should be a more stringent penalty. And now we're coming a cropper, having been fundamentally under Sir John Madejski, one of the best run football clubs in the country, to being literally up there with Morecambe, the worst run club in the country. But the problem is, of course, the rules that the EFL have, they're all proposed and implemented by the football clubs. So people like Trevor Birch and the committee, the management committee at the EFL, are essentially holding they're doing the admin for the football clubs. So the rules that are in place and the penalties that are in place are there. But when you want and you need more stringent rules, turkeys ain't going to vote for Christmas. So and certainly, it's a real problem within football, because football has just had this constant conveyor belt of clubs in trouble. It's us now. It's Morecambe. It's been Port Vale in the past. It's been Oldham. It's been Stockport, of course. You've had your own problems. Wigan in recent years. Bolton and Bury that we've spoken about. Before then, it was Leyton Orient. Before then, it was sort of around that time, it was Charlton. Yeah. If it wasn't Charlton, it was Portsmouth. If it wasn't Portsmouth, it was Leeds. If it wasn't Leeds, it was Carlisle back in the late 90s. If it wasn't Carlisle, it's Exeter back in the 90s and 2000s. If it wasn't Exeter, it was Plymouth. If it wasn't Plymouth, it was almost every club has been affected by it. Hartlepool, Darlington. there's not a region in the country that hasn't suffered in terms of their football club, and it's pathetic. And the EFL really does need more teeth to be able to oust owners. But then you get into the dynamic where your competition laws conflict with actual law, company law, because you can't force a director out of a shareholder to divest his shares or her shares if they don't want to. And this is where, again, the issue is, we know Dai Yongge says that he's committed to, in the club update today, Dai Yongge is apparently committed to fulfilling his obligations now that he's a disqualified director to divest his shares of the football club. He's been fully committed to selling the football club for the last 500 plus days, and he hasn't yet sold it. And so, you can have this disqualification, this clause within the EFL regulations. But what the fuck happens if an owner doesn't divest their shares and they just want to bring the club down? And let's not also forget that ending a football club isn't exactly alien to these owners either, because they were in charge of Beijing Renhe. Or people might think it's China. It's not exactly a sort of a massive football club, but they were a Chinese top division football club. I've got to be brutally honest. I don't know about the culture in the football culture out there, but it's a football club that hasn't that essentially no longer exists. But then you've also got KSV Roeselare, who are a Belgian football club, founded in 1921, I believe, with a distinguished history in the Belgian leagues, who out of absolutely nowhere seem to end up in financial trouble and were just liquidated it's about 5 years ago now. The Dais had controlling interests in those two football clubs, and those two football clubs no longer exist. So there's a worrying trend. You don't need to do a hell of a lot of trend analysis to recognise that this could be happening to us. It's just a slow process, and it's dragging it out to screw over as many people as he possibly can, because that is part of Chinese business culture as well. That we know.
So, how is he being able? And I suppose, with him being, sorry, I'm not making any sense. With him being told that he's not able to be a director anymore, and obviously him owning the club, does that mean he's kind of having his hand forced more to make sure that happens?
Yes, there is a lot of pressure being put on him. The EFL are putting as much pressure as they can. The Supporters Trust, who have been absolutely phenomenal throughout this whole process, they're putting a lot of pressure, as much pressure as they can, on the owners, through the powers that be within the club, because the owners, nobody's ever spoken to them either. So he's never done they've never done any kind of interview, any kind of communication with the with fans, with the media, with anybody. So yes, there is pressure being put on them, but ultimately the decision in company law still rests with Dai Yongge, Daiju Li, to divest themselves of that shareholding. And in company law, they don't have to. So, as I say, as I mentioned, it's where there's a massive conflict between EFL regs and company law.
So if they didn't do that, what happens? Would that mean that the club dissolves?
Again, as I said, if the club and they can satisfy the EFL that progress is being made towards the end goal, which is selling the club to a new owner, then they can extend the deadline. But if there is no evidence to suggest that progress is being made, then we end up in the Bury situation, where they have their golden share taken from them, and they're left in limbo with no competition that's willing to take them. And you end up in the world of a Phoenix club. Now, of course, the guy who owned Bury, I forget his name, Steve
Dale.
Steve Dale, thank you.
Yeah.
So he actually carried on. He carried the club on. So the should we call it the traditional club, was still in existence, even though there was the Phoenix club that was playing the football. And I understand now that the clubs, they merged about a year, 18 months ago, something like that, and carried on the name of the existence of the original Bury.
Yeah.
So I know there was a massive split between the fan bases, the fan groups.
Yeah.
I don't know what the relationship is between the two of them, whether or not they actually sort of, have buried the hatchet. But as I understand it, so they're now playing under the old Bury name. Steve Dale has absolutely nothing to do with Bury, but that's the route that we're heading down. That if Dai doesn't divest himself of those shares.
It's shocking. I just think it's absolutely awful. And yeah, when all is said and done, football is a game, but going to the match, being around people who have the same, share the same passion, and so for some people, it's their chance to get out and see other people and be a part of something. And I just feel like it's just a community, isn't it? Nobody should have to go through this with the football club. It blows your mind.
Totally agree.
It's
totally
been a
agree.
So much.
And I think on top of that, I say a football club is so much more than just the football match and the football players.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got the fans, and their, the emotional attachment that fans have with their club. But on top of that, you have all of the work that a football club does in the community. The Reading Football Club's community trust, I'm led to believe, is one of the largest in the EFL. It's a seven-figure charity, £1 million plus charity, and the work that it puts into engaging with the community with the Reading Football Club badge is absolutely phenomenal. And that's 7 figures worth of work that, if the football club goes, that's not going to. There's no that engagement then leaves the community. There is nothing in the town of Reading to pick that up right now. So we are a one club town. We do have another football club within the pyramid in the town, Reading City, but they're right down in the Hellenic League, which is like step 6 or 7. So Reading is there's no other professional football club within nearly 30 miles of us. So there isn't anything really that would pick up that community trust activity. And then there's so much more through things like sort of club lotteries. You've got the Young Royals initiative, which every club has their own sort of Young Royals or young equivalent. You don't have that sort of bond to be able to sort of instill and connect with kids. And it's there's just so much more than just a company. 11 sort of players on a football pitch and like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 fans, however many turn up to your club, and it's just so much more than that.
What's the feeling sort of been like amongst sort of media coverage of the club have had so far? Because you look at when Bolton and Bury were going up, like potentially going under, and Sky Sports were treating it like transfer deadline day. I mean,
that's horrific, absolutely horrific what Bolton did, what they did with Bolton. Sorry. So to be fair, we've had a fair degree of coverage mainly because of the activity that we've and the protests that we've undertaken, but also because we're really fortunate within Sell Before We Die to have some really talented PR people. We've got some, not just the PR people, I hasten to add, but everybody is talented. We've got a group of people who have their own sort of niche expertise. You know, we've got governance expertise. We've got sort of HR. We've got, let's say, the PR guys. We've got qualified accountants. We've got people who are willing to be and intelligently educated. You know, about a variety of different things. But when it comes to, you know, the media, it's been largely positive in terms of the protest activity, with a few exceptions. You know, Simon Jordan in particular was quite scathing of the Port Vale abandonment just over a year ago. But he's, you know, mellowed. You know, Kaz Parker, who was you know, she's not somebody I'd want to get into an argument with, put it that way. She took Simon Jordan on, and Jordan has actually mellowed quite a bit. So credit to Kaz and kudos to Kaz on that one. But yeah, the guys, you know, with the press releases, they're fully PR'd, and you know, essentially the message that's been pushed out there is really, you know, it's really done us a solid. And the media's picked up on it. They've got contacts within the media anyway. So Ian Morton and Greg Double and Becky Trotman are the PR people. They've all got contacts within the media. It goes out to the press releases go out to the Associated Press. We've got contacts in the Guardian, the Independent. You know, we've certainly got Henry Winter on side. He's constantly, he's often tweeting about us. Can I use tweet now? Posting on X about us.
Tweet.
So but yeah, so in light of the activity that we've undertaken, it's been largely positive, mainly because we've tried to be, you know, we've gone past. We had to disrupt games to be able to get the in the early stages to get the message across that we're here. We're now beyond the stage of match disruption, and we're now into the world of sort of government lobbying, really, and legal cases. So a lot of the activity now is being done not behind closed doors. That's the wrong word or wrong phrase, but you know, it's kind of being done in the background. So it looks like there's not a lot of, you know, we're kind of like the ungraceful swan, I suppose, with a lot of work going on under the water, rather than, you know, the ugly side of it up above. So, but yeah, it's been largely positive. It's been pretty good. You know, it's been quite national as well. But again, that's been you know, sort of prompted by the activity. You know, so Bolton was the first time that we actually had a full-on tennis ball protest. And I know Charlton fans did the tennis ball protest. It was something that we kind of took on. Charlton fans did the tennis ball protest for Du Châtelet. That's how you pronounce his name, by the way.
I know. I'm going to have to keep that one. Every time now, I'm going to have to practice by you, Dave. Replay it.
So, but yeah, that was Bolton. So that was sort of match disruption. That got a lot of traction. And then we did the FA Cup, the live FA Cup tie on ITV at Eastleigh, where we said that we would be doing it. You know, it was tennis balls again. It was fake money. It was all sorts. And we actually prompted and got in touch with. I think it was it Sam Matterface who was doing the commentary with Ian Wright and the like, and gave them basically a full sort of one-page document of spiel. And you know, Sam Matterface absolutely did us a solid. He read pretty much the whole lot out. It was absolutely brilliant.
I think the thing is as well with that kind of thing, though, everybody is pissed off with it keep happening. Like, it's happened to so many clubs. Like, no matter what you think of that club, no matter who your rival is, you don't want to see any team go through that. And if you do, you're a bit of a twat, let's be honest. Like, nobody wants to see it keep happening. And I think that's, the more it does happen, like, it's gonna get more like support, because it just shouldn't be okay.
Exactly. And so something that we've tried to do is not so much behind the Sell Before We Die banner, but to raise awareness and solidarity with other clubs who are going through different issues. I mean, there's one club that we haven't even mentioned at the moment is Swindon. So I actually live near Swindon, and I've got a lot of people in and around my social life who are Swindon Town supporters. So I get a full pretty much rundown on the regular of what's happening with them. But so there is a group chat that we've got with Swindon and Morecambe fans. Our issue, though, you're quite right, is you get progressively more pissed off with clubs, as it happens to more and more clubs. But we, unfortunately, with Portsmouth in particular, were not particularly graceful and sympathetic towards them, and so we have actually had quite last season there were two very, very bitter games against them from their part, where they were really chomping at the bit to shove it down our throats. Fair play. We weren't particularly great. You've got to hold your hands up, and I offer my own personal apology, because I was one of those who wasn't particularly great. We were one of those clubs at the time under Medeski, as I said. We were one of the best run clubs in the country, playing against Portsmouth, who were, even after they'd gone into administration, massively overspent because of a dickhead owner. And they went, and as I say, we all know what happened to them. They went down to League Two. So, a little bit more, I can certainly turn around and say that I won't ever do that again, given what we've gone through, what we continue to go through. So it's been a little bit difficult to garner solidarity with some clubs, but other clubs have been largely supportive. But it would just be really, really good if we could get whenever this happens, or if it happens to another club, fans of other clubs go and actually not just watch a match of said club that's in trouble, but do some kind of promotional type thing under a specific banner, like it's happened again or something like that. Where it's just you could just literally shove two fingers up to the football authorities and say, look, come on, this has happened again. What why does it keep happening? And have fans of clubs that have predominantly fans of clubs who have been in trouble in the past, but fans of all clubs go in there and sort of having their photos taken in their shirts and whatnot, and just showing solidarity to those clubs that are in trouble, because the fans of those clubs will be going through a torrid time, just like we are at the moment. I'm quite happy to hold my hand up and say that I was, one thing that I haven't mentioned is the proposed training ground sale to, funnily enough, Wycombe Wanderers, who were fronted by Rob Couhig. We very, very quickly mustered a small protest at Adams Park, and I was the guy who cried on Sky Sports News because I just didn't know what the hell was going to happen to my football club. It was, if at that point it was looking like an asset strip and smelling like an asset strip, so it was probably going to be an asset strip. But this is where our governance experts came in. Sue, God, what's that? I forget her name. Sorry, Sue. She dug into the planning permission that Woking and Borough Council had given to the football club when the training ground had been sold, and found just a small clause which basically put the whole sale off. So that's where, if you have people that are willing to dig into the detail, that it's really, really effective. So it can be quite an emotional time when that kind of thing happens. And I think we need to show more solidarity, actual visual solidarity.
Yeah.
Honestly, that was one of my questions. Obviously, like how the football family can rally and kind of come together and help raise awareness. And I think that's one thing I've never, ever thought of. Like what you said, Dave, honestly, like when I don't want to obviously bring our troubles into it, as unfortunately we're down to the fact we were fan owned and we needed to go over extra miles. So it was a bit of different circumstances with us. But obviously it got to a point with us where I was kind of on Twitter, I was trying to tag all journalists and different people in, like different outlets, different fans, coming together to try and get the word out there. But I think that's a fantastic idea, and I'd 100% be down for that. I know it's only Rochdale, but I know I've got a platform as well on social media and things like that, and of other fans as well. We've got contacts as well, and even we could do that at our clubs to try and get the ball rolling and things like that, because especially with Jen being on, Jen's a Morecambe fan, and just something out there that I want to try and help. And this is why I wanted to get you on today, because it might not reach a lot of people, but it might reach some people and the right people in some way. You never know who's watching it, and someone could see it and think, oh, I never knew that was going on at obviously Reading or Morecambe or any other club. And that's what we like to do on here, isn't it? Try and get the word out. But yeah, just on, obviously, I know you did mention them vaguely, but Sell Before We Dai, it was something that I'm very familiar with, obviously, from Twitter. I have followed the page for quite a while now. But what is that and the initiative behind it, and who's involved? How did that come about? Obviously, I know the situation and why, but...
Yeah, so, of course, what we've gone through over the last... up until 2023, after relegation from Championship, we've gone through two successive seasons of points deductions, 6-point deductions, due to financial mismanagement. And, it was ultimately the buck stops with Dai Yongge. And we were told during that summer that the club had taken its medicine and this would not happen anymore. And literally within a couple of weeks, we end up with another points deduction because we haven't paid loan fees, I believe it was, and our tax as well. Our HMRC was late. Our pay as you earn, was late. So anyway, points deduction number 3, or points deduction season number 3 in a row. We become the first club in history to receive points deductions 3 seasons in a row. There was already a sort of a group chat between like-minded fans, supporter sites essentially. So the Tireless End is one, Elm Park Royals was another, and sort of Proud Royals, the LGBTQ plus group. There was members of the women's supporters, or Reading ladies supporters, should I say? Essentially, the long and short of it is they'd already discussed having some kind of protest group, but from that points deduction onwards, it formalised and it mobilised. And that was back in June, July time last year, 2023. Yeah. Essentially, because we'd had enough. Dai Yongge wasn't being a responsible owner, and so the aim was to pressure and force Dai Yongge to sell the club. It eventually, got to the point in sort of October time where the club first announced that Dai Yongge was looking to actively sell the club. Objective 1 achieved: get the club, or get Dai Yongge to actively say that they are looking to sell the club. Objective 2 is yet to be realised. But yeah, so as I've mentioned, there's a group, individuals in there. There's probably about 20 of us in there who have all stepped in and stepped back at various times. But we've had a number of initiatives like the tennis ball protests. Yeah. We had the march that we held from the town centre to the SCL. back in sort of, late October, early November 2023, funnily enough, before the Portsmouth game. That was interesting. Which brought about, we think about 1,500 to 2,000 people on it. We've had meetings with the football club, with Dai Yongge, which ultimately led to the match abandonment, because Dai Yongge openly lied to our faces by saying that there would be no need for player sales. And then during the transfer window, we end up selling Nathan Abbey and another, can't remember who, Tom Holmes. Nathan Abbey to Olympiacos and Tom Holmes to Luton, respectively. So that was basically it. We've been lied to our faces, and we were all for that. So actually, that day was the actual abandonment was very, very much fan driven. It wasn't us. We were all for invading the pitch after the final whistle, but it happened in the 16th minute. Which essentially was the number of points that we'd had deducted over successive seasons to that point. It's gone up to 18 since then. So we've had that. We mobilised the Wickham protest after the proposed training ground sale. Numerous press releases. We do a very good, strongly worded letter as well to various people. It's essentially it's now a sort of conglomerate of the Supporters Trust as well are very much involved in it. So Supporters Trust, Elm Park Royals, the Tireless End, and fans who want to help and are motivated and have the energy to do that. But it's a very draining experience, it has to be said, and we've been very, very grateful to receive the new blood when it's come in, because it's not an easy thing to do. So that's essentially who Sell Before We Die are. We're essentially the football club, or the supporters protest group, aiming to put pressure and force Dai Yongge out of the football club.
Honestly, hats off to you, like all the work that you all do, because I followed it for quite a while, for Twitter, and obviously I've seen the work that you've done throughout, and obviously it'll be a lot behind the scenes, and then recently as well, and I'm constantly trying to help by retweeting everything at the minute. Like, no matter who's been on, I've been trying to retweet everything just to try and get the word out. But yeah, honestly, everybody and the work that you're all doing, like, you're doing a fantastic job. You really, really are. Just wanted to say that.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we do appreciate it. And hopefully it'll have a good ending.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. 100%. We've all got our fingers crossed. One thing I did want to mention as well is just your season so far, because obviously you've got all this going on behind the scenes, but what a season you're having so far, like the players, the manager. And I just wanted to say, like, how's it going? Despite all the troubles, if you put all them aside, like, how is the season going so far from a football perspective?
Yeah, so it's been. Listen, we'd have taken safety. We'd have taken not being relegated at the start of the season, and now they're starting to get our hopes up a little bit, which is a bit, classic. It's not the despair. I can take the despair. It's the hope that bloody kills you.
Yeah.
Listen, we're not going to go up automatically. We know that. But we're putting in a damn good fight with ultimately it's a tiny squad of players, and it's been diminished as well. We sold Sam Smith to Wrexham in January, and Tyler Bindon has gone. Been sold to Forest, but he's back on loan with us to the end of the season. That's money essentially from those two transfer fees that has kept the club alive. We'd be able to to pay the Lecky bill and the salaries and whatnot. So it's been absolutely phenomenal though. The disruption. It was a bit of turmoil in December with Ruben Sellers going to Hull. That was extremely upsetting because nobody blames Sellers for doing that. A, Hull are a division above. B, they've got money to spend, and C, he's not got to deal with the emotional turmoil of what was being told to him, and having to deal with that and manage the players at the same time. But the performances, particularly at home, we've been very, very strong at home. Our attacking strength has been diminished somewhat by Sam Smith going, but also Noel Hunt is still very much in his first role. He was the only man really who was ever going to be considered for the job because he didn't cost anything, and he's promoted from within. But he's doing a decent job of maintaining the playoff push. We're 10 unbeaten at the moment as well, which when you consider, we don't have any natural left back. We've had injuries at right back. We've had significant injuries within the centre of defence at the moment. Amadou and Menge is a massive loss, but the central midfield has been we've been very, very fortunate with the central midfield with Lewis Wing, Charlie Savage, and Harvey Nibbs being pretty much ever present throughout the season. It's unfortunate that Ben Elliott has been injured since sort of November time, and up front we've had our struggles as well with fitness. But Jayden Warren has just been thrown in at the deep end with Sam Smith's departure, and he started looking like with every game he looks more and more effective, and has actually started getting into goal scoring positions, and there's notched 3 or 4 already this season. So but of course, once if you lose one of those players, there is no depth. And the issue that we would have is Lewis Wing. So Stockport did a really, really good job on Lewis Wing actually at the Medeski by man marking him and essentially allowed Ollie Norwood to run the game. But Lewis Wing on his day is up there with the most effective midfielders in the division, and he absolutely makes this team tick. If we lost Lewis Wing to injury, it would be an absolute travesty, and somebody would have to step up. But I'm not sure anybody's quite got the quality that Lewis Wing has in our squad.
Do you know what though? I think obviously I have a bit of a special interest in League One this season.
Funny that.
I wonder why.
Obviously, our games aside, because for whatever reason, you've been pretty shit both games. That aside, obviously, you can't grumble at that comment, can you? It's not gone very well for you. And this is.
Oh, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. We were shit in both games.
Yeah. I know, I just saw Shah's face. I actually come at this with a compliment anyway. And I know I was saying to you before we came live that given everything that is going on within the club, I just think it's so phenomenal that squad of players have managed to be where they are in the league. And I think it shows a lot that whilst obviously your own is an absolute fucking weapon, that there's so many people within that club who are the right people to be there. And it shows that there's a spirit there that will help you sort of kind of move past everything that's happened.
There is. Absolutely, there is. It's testament to the players that they've managed to put in the performances that they have on a consistent basis throughout the season, despite everything that's gone on. And Ruben Sellers has got a lot to answer for that as well, because he was the one who really started bonding that team with by playing good football for a start. It always helps when you play good football and you start getting results. Yeah. But he was the one that really bonded the fans and the team together, and you see that with certain players in particular. Harvey Nibbs and Amadou Mbenge at the end of the game, particularly if we win. They're in front of Club 1871, giving it the fist pumps and whatnot. And it's just a really, really good bond that the fans have got with those players, which really helps. But behind the scenes, I feel for the club staff, because a couple of them I do know personally, and they are really stuck between a rock and a hard place, because I think it's fair to say that they also want the ownership out, because of everything that's going on. But they can't say anything or do anything, because ultimately the people that hold pretty much the scissors to the string that is their job, the chief executive officer and the owners. So I really do feel for those people, because they're just being, the club has been cut back to an absolute shoestring. It is running on the bare bones of its resources, to the extent that we can't put the heat lamps, the lights over the pitch during the winter, because it costs too much. It's literally bare bones, and the pit. You can see that from the pitch. Now it's an absolute state. Try playing football on it. And on the floor, it's just like you might as well have a rugby ball. So that's just one indication of where the club's gone. The stadium itself is looking incredibly tatty, because it's not having the maintenance done to it that it needs to spruce it up. And it's just there were rumours actually at the back end in winter last year that the staff were sitting in their offices in their jackets because they didn't put the heating on. So I feel for them, but it would be a real fillip if we did get to the championship. We were able to get to the championship, by hook or by crook this season somehow or other, because the income would obviously increase. I just hope we don't make the silly decision, or the owners at the moment make the silly decision to go spunking money left, right, and centre again. I don't think they would do, because hopefully they wouldn't be there, but I don't think they would do anyway. Because Dai Yongge isn't putting any money into the club anymore. He's totally withdrawn that funding, which is causing the issues that we're seeing now, because the club is reliant, as most clubs are, to be fair. I say most clubs, they're reliant on external funding to remain afloat. So but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's testament to the players that they've managed to put in the performances they have. But it's just, please don't give us too much hope if you're not going to actually do the bloody deed and get promoted, please. Because I can't put up with another playoff final defeat. We've had 4 already.
What's going to happen for Reading, and this is my little prediction, is that you're going to end up with a new fantastic owner that's as good as our new owner over the summer, and then next season you're going to go up in the autos. You're going to go on a summer holiday next summer being like, I'm having champagne because I am so fucking happy. This is all a thing of the past. We have our club back.
I'd like to, it's a lovely dream, but it's it really is. But I don't want to go to sleep yet, because I want to make sure the club gets sold first. And then I can start dreaming. Once that club is sold, we're out of embargoes, and we can start signing players. I think you're right. I'm not being big-headed in any way, shape, or form, but we do have a bit of a pull for players. We're in a good location. We have a relatively decent fan base. A lot of them are staying away at the moment because they're just so disillusioned and can't actually expend the emotional energy on the club at the moment, because they just keep being let down so often. But when we do get sold, I mean, let's not just look past that first night after of that day when we get sold, because that is going to be one massive fucking party down the Purple Turtle in Reading.
Will come.
You'd be welcome.
Next podcast night.
Road trip. Actually,
Yeah.
you say Reading's in a good location. My head office is there. That ain't a good location. It's like miles away.
We need people
Well,
to buy
the town of
club
Reading,
level.
sorry, is in a good location. That's what I'm on about. Not the stadium's bloody awful. Yeah, I get why people don't like the stadium. Yeah, let's not get onto that too much. But yeah, it's because back in the day when those new stadiums were being built, it was all sort of looking to go out of town, and then every other club after us learnt from our mistakes and said, no, don't ever do that. Apart from Coventry, that's even further out of town.
Yeah, it is a mint ground, so fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's location wise in terms of the town, it's like 25 miles from Heathrow, central London, 30 miles away, 40 miles away, however far it is. It's got a big catchment area as well. So, it does have a bit of a pull and a bit of a draw, and it would be nice to think that we could be and should be up there with the stronger teams in the division once we get everything out of the way. But ultimately that all comes down. That's not resting on my laurels and counting my chickens. Ultimately, that comes down to good decision making and having a good structure within the club once a new owner comes in. Until we get that, you can go whistle.